Okay, hi everyone, and happy Friday. Thanks for joining. My name is Anan Hanna. I am one of the SEs here at Securematics. I can see many names that I have worked with and other names that I'm looking forward to work with. Uh, Before we start, I just wanted to highlight a couple of services that my engineering department can assist you with before I handing it out to our special Belkine. First of all, of course, the pre-sale support. So you will be having a dedicated SE to your account. I'm one of them based here in San Diego. We also have Brian Waldrop, who has just recently joined Securematics, and he's based in South Carolina. We also have Keegan Wade, who's based in San Diego. So the whole team will be ready to answer any technical questions that you have, uh, join any calls with your end users, with your customers, helping you and your engineers with designing the bill of materials and giving you alternatives from other vendors or from end of life devices. So feel free, please, to utilize us. We can also help not only with Juniper, definitely with other vendors that we have with Mist solutions, including the Buzz right now, which is the proximity tracing solution. We can help you with the back to the office plan and help you to get back to the office safely with the Mist proximity tracing solution. As recently, we have actually deployed that solution in our warehouse, in our office. So feel free to reach out to me or any one of the engineers here to talk about it. Beside Juniper, we can definitely help you, as I mentioned, with Mist. We have a large demo pool that has latest and greatest of the products from Juniper and from Mist. We have the recent Wi-Fi 6 access points, BLE access points, SRX, new SRXs and new QFX switches. We are always keen to update and upgrade our demo pool. So please utilize this service. It's really easy. You can simply go to our website and request that. We can also help you with the trial licenses which is good for 60 days. And we usually ship within the same day. So that's another good service that we offer. Professional services, whenever you need, like license activation, adding extra models or power supplies to your order, labeling, staging. We are ready to do that as well. We have really good success stories with supporting our partners with the professional services. Lastly, the certification journey. We can definitely guide you, help you to upgrade your partnership with Juniper with the right courses, guide you with provide you with some vouchers to do the test. So please reach out to me or any one of the team members, and we can definitely help you. I think I covered most of the services, and I would like to hand it out now to Bill Kine to talk more about our like Juniper wired assurance. So Bill.
Great, thank you, Anand. Good morning, everyone. By way of introduction, I'm an SC manager with Juniper out of the Southern California, and I support our business partners. So this is a webinar primarily for resellers supported by Juniper and by Securematics. For the resellers, we're all here to help make you successful selling and supporting Juniper. So please let Anand know, let myself know if there's anything we can do from a technical basis, or we can, of course, get you in touch with the appropriate business or sales reps too. So this is going to be the first of what we hope will be a monthly series of moderately technical webinars to help educate you on some of the latest developments in the market with Juniper, but with our solutions, and also let you know what some of our customers are thinking and doing as well. So the topic is wired assurance. And to get to what that means, let me tell you a little bit of a story historically. Over a year ago, I'm sure you know, this is something that we've gone out of our way to make sure you've heard of. Juniper acquired Mist. Mist was a startup company in the Wi-Fi field. Juniper did not have a Wi-Fi solution before this, and that actually was a very painful hole in our product portfolio. We would do pitches to customers saying, go out and buy whichever Wi-Fi solution you want, get the best of breed, and we'll give you a best of breed switching infrastructure as the underlay to support all of that. And that certainly worked. I think as I look at the reseller list on this call, many of you have been successful with that, but it's an awkward story and it's really not what the customers wanted to hear. So when we acquired Mist, we came up with Wi-Fi, which was a great addition to the Juniper portfolio. More importantly, though, what we bought Mist for, in addition to the fact that we now sell Wi-Fi, is the fact that they do everything with basically an artificial intelligence or an AI engine. So you've heard all of your vendors talking about artificial intelligence. In fact, I was at I bought some new golf clubs about a month ago, and the sales rep made a big deal of telling me that these golf clubs by Callaway were designed using AI. Just for the fun of it, I asked him what that meant, and he had no comment beyond that. But you're hearing that everybody uses AI for just about anything in your life these days. The view that we have for AI is it's going to get us to what we want to call the self-driving network. So it sure would be nice if a network could identify a problem in advance, perhaps say congestion on a trunk, and then auto provision a correction for that. Or perhaps the network itself would notice that a VLAN is missing. And of course, that's an easy command to send to a switch in order to add that VLAN onto the correct port. But it would be really nice to do that before the users complained. So that's the vision that Mist has with regards to artificial intelligence, and that's what they're delivering on today. Juniper also is very committed to artificial intelligence, and we were addressing it initially from a security perspective. The Juniper and Mist combination lets us look at this from an overall infrastructure. That's what wired assurance is about. It's about adding artificial intelligence to the wired network or the switching infrastructure. The possibly not politically correct saying in Juniper in the sales department is no naked switches. In other words, what we would like to do is every time we sell an EX enterprise switch to a customer, we would like to add wired assurance onto that. Now, yes, that's a minor upsell. No, it's not a big dollar thing that anybody's going to get rich off of, including Juniper. But more importantly, it adds to the overall database of for artificial intelligence, the machine learning database, and it leads to a much better customer experience. And since I'm talking to resellers, frankly, it makes your job much easier when it comes to deploying switches and also maintaining the network for the customer. So it's definitely a win-win-win situation. So with that in mind, the agenda I have for you over the next, this won't take the full hour. I hope nobody objects about that, but probably over the next 30 minutes is to talk about what, when, and why wired assurance is, provide you with more details, knowing that this is a technical group, and then just kind of wrapping up with what I call the dollars and cents of everything. Please keep this interactive. There's a chat window that the Securematics team is monitoring, and if they can respond to you directly, they will. If they want to have me chime in, I'm always happy to do that. Or we can get back to you too, depending upon the questions. And the other thing I would ask is also, please, while you're learning about this, think about your customers and think about where this might be applicable within your marketplace. So starting at the beginning, going to throw a new name out at you, Marvis. Yes, there is a pretty high probability that will sound vaguely familiar to any of you Iron Man fans. That was Tony Stark's artificial intelligence entity. Jarvis was, that is. Marvis is the Mist version of that. And it's probably not coincidental that the name was fairly similar. So anyhow, what the artificial intelligence engine is with Marvis is really what you see here. It's a combination of several things. First of all, artificial intelligence or machine learning is totally useless unless it has a lot of data to draw upon. So you need to build a database of basically what a network is supposed to do under ideal situations and what happens when it's not performing as advertised or expected. So database is forever growing. We use machine learning for that constantly. In order to access a database, we have artificial intelligence primitives. Think of those as procedural calls, or think of that as a toolkit, if you will, in order to talk to it and massage all of the data. In addition to those primitives, we keep everything on a timeline. So the data for an individual customer or user is kept for 30 days. That does not mean that their traffic is kept for 30 days. Instead, it's analytics that we keep for 30 days. So we do not store any user data whatsoever in the cloud. Instead, what we store is that Jamie connected to the HR server Thursday, transmitted X number of bytes, disconnected at this particular time, and here are some of the stats associated with Jamie's session. Performance, any errors, any anomalies, any potential security violations, etc. All of that was then fed into data science. So data science is analyzing all of that information and presenting something that a user can understand. And so you see some of the pretty pictures and the graphs. Marvis comes into play in the next step. That's our virtual assistant. No, we cannot speak to Marvis. We actually are working on a speech interface, but we're having a lot of trouble with that with regards to languages and dialects. So it's not quite the Alexa that we hope it will be yet, but instead you communicate with a keyboard. So something you could type into Marvis is, what is the status of the Sacramento office? And it will give you all of the stats associated with that. Or you could type in, why can't Jim log into the network? And it will tell you that there have been several different password violations, perhaps. So it's an interactive user interface using the English language, but it's keyboard based, and stand by, more is coming as well. So all of that gives you the toolkit that we use in order to build upon to give you AI for a network, for either wired or wireless, or better yet, both of those together. So the progression of an AI-driven enterprise for Juniper. By the way, this is our latest internal acronym. It's AIDE, or AID, for AI-driven enterprise. And like everything else in our industry, I'm sure the acronym will change over time too. Forgive my cynicism. So anyhow, the AI enterprise concept for Juniper and Mist began when Mist was first announced in 2016. 2018, they were delivering that to many different customers. One of the most notable early adopters was Dartmouth University, and there are quite a few others as well, especially in the retail space, hospitality space, and healthcare. And healthcare is especially relevant today, where they need to do a lot more than they expected, and their MIS budgets aren't growing. So artificial intelligence really helps with that. Late last year, we added in wired assurance as well, which is actually looking at the switches in addition to wireless. Late last year, when we announced that and first delivered it, there was rather limited functionality. Now that we're in October of 2020, that's expanded considerably, as I'll show you. What's coming later this year is adding security and WAN interfaces to this as well. So pretty much everything you need to run a network for wireless, for wired, for branch offices, for storefronts, for K through 12 school districts, etc., will all be available to be managed under the guise of artificial intelligence and the Marvis engine. And then later on, the next step is to add in data centers as well. That's something that we're looking at for next year. We're still on the part of developing the security and the WAN interface, but stay tuned for more announcements in that respect. So what we're trying to deliver is a greatly overused term in the industry, single pane of glass. And I've seen the word pane spelled different ways as well when customers talk about single pane of glass. What this will give you, though, is an ability to look at the entire network and to not just ask, why is my switch not working, but instead have a holistic point of view saying, why is the Sacramento office offline? Or why can't Don get to the server in Tulsa? And with that, in order to see why Don can't get to the server in Tulsa, you'll need to look at Don's connection. You'll need to look at Don's Wi-Fi. You'll need to look at the port on the switch that the AP is connected to. You'll need to look at the router on another port on the switch. You'll need to look at the cloud. And then you'll need to look at everything in Tulsa as well, all the way back to the server. So when we say single pane of glass, we're talking big picture and look at the end-to-end connection in order to deliver a better user experience. The old joke in the industry saying, well, I can ping that office so it's up and running, the network's good, has long since played out. So now what we see are a lot of silos in our customer base, where there are security people, there are routing people, there are switching people, there probably are Wi-Fi groups as well in large enterprises. We want to tie all of these together to eliminate a lot of the finger pointing and to give you that end-to-end view from Don in whatever city I said, all the way to the server that he's trying to get to in Tulsa. Looking at this just from a switching perspective, hence the wired assurance part, we kind of have a good, better, best story for our customers. So good is visibility. You do not need to buy anything to do this. You do not need to have a Juniper switch to do this. I misspoke. You do not need to have a Juniper switch to do this. The only thing you need from Juniper is an AP attached to that switch, because we'll communicate with the AP. The AP will actually query the switch for information. And again, this could be a brand X, Y, or Z switch. And it will tell you basically what the switching status is, some fundamental things like what VLANs are configured, what traffic looks like, whether ports are up and down, and so forth. So that's good. No charge for that, easy to do it. That's probably better visibility than your customers have today. Improving upon this, better, let's get to the AI-driven service level monitoring. Now for this would be looking at a Juniper switch, and this would be looking at individual stats on each port. This would be seeing the throughput. This would be comparing the port configuration to that which is expected. This would be taking the temperature of the switch to make sure it isn't overheating or having a fan problem. This would be looking at the memory, the CPU utilization, etc. So this is really looking at service level metrics for each and every port, carry that further to each and every user session. We actually can collect 150 stats per user. In the Wi-Fi world, we do that every 3 seconds. In the switch world, that's a hell of a lot of data that can really overload things. So we do that every 30 seconds, and it's a user configurable timer. Good, better, best. Best would be to actually do something about all that information. So back to my example earlier where somebody overlooked configuring a unnecessary VLAN on a trunk, we can fix that. Machines can provision machines. If you do that, it's a lot quicker than having us cumbersome human units take care of the config or diagnose the problem first and then take care of the config. And it also eliminates a lot of fat finger problems. Or oops, I meant port 7 and actually configured port 9. These are things that Marvis can do for you in the wired world on a Juniper infrastructure. Summary, visibility, pretty much everything you would want, from basic switch features all the way down to detailed user level stats. Monitoring, let's apply this for a service level agreement or the service level experience for individual users, and let's configure things to go along with that. And then finally, action, let's do it all for you. Let's have the network run itself. That's the essence of what we call wired assurance. So running through this one more time with some examples. For visibility, for wired visibility, here you see a list of the switches and you see the summary. We're looking at 10 switches and 9 APs and Actually, to tell you the truth, this is actually a screenshot from the Mist office in Palo Alto. Well, guess what? Mist, like everywhere else on the planet, is working from home. So it's not quite as dynamic as we'd like for a demo, but we're seeing they have 10 switches and 9 APs and only 12 clients running on all of that. And by the way, those 12 clients include things like printers and servers as well. So in the work from home environment, we don't have the greatest of demos or screenshots, but it does show you an aggregate view. And we can turn this into a matrix diagram as well, showing interconnections. For wired assurance, we can, yes.
I had one question come in. Can I have a device on standby and Marvis transfer configurations to the new device and turn it on and up?
Oh, I love that question. I hope you have a prize for whoever asked that. The short answer is yes, absolutely. And in fact, that's something I'm going to show you in just a little bit too.
Perfect, thank you.
I love softballs that I can answer. Thank you, Bailey. So carrying this a little bit further, looking at an EX switch, we're now looking at the individual users as well as the aggregate, and we can drill down to check the actual health of individual connections. And here would be the interconnection diagram. And of course, you can click on all of these for more information and for to drill down for all of the stats. Under what in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, we're talking about dynamic actions. We're talking about config problems. We're talking about zero-touch provisioning. Hence that switch, ship it straight out of the box, plug it in and have it configure itself. And yes, that could be a hot spare as well. And yes, you can in fact move things, which I'm going to show you in just a moment as well. And this does support virtual chassis also, which is a Juniper way for interconnecting the backbone of switches. Okay, so that was kind of the summary or the overview, the drill down with a lot more details. Now let me actually pause here and see if there are any questions first. Okay,
yeah.
we'll keep the chat window.
Yeah, we did have one come in actually. Any plans to roll Marvis out to the SRX line?
Oh, I love these questions already. The answer is absolutely. It's going to be a phased rollout because the SRX, as you know, is actually, the word SRX stands for security, routing, and switching. So the challenge we have with that is it does a whole lot more than what we've initially implemented with regards to Marvis in the switching arena, but you're going to start seeing security management before the end of the year. Then it's going to be phased in a little bit further with regards to Q1, where you'll see you'll be able to see it taking action with regards to WAN connections and also monitoring some more of the complex cloud operations. And this will be, by the way, physical and virtual SRXs. Any others?
Yeah, it looks like I missed one about Marvis. Will Marvis notify me of issues it avoided?
Will Marvis notify me of issues, of actions that it takes? The answer is yes, they're all logged. And actually, one of the actions that you can have is just to notify someone. This is what a lot of our customers are doing right now because they're afraid to give up control of the network to this. I think they saw 2001 Space Odyssey a few times where HAL takes over. So one of the options that you can have with Marvis is detect a problem and then wake somebody up on their cell phone and have the human unit intervene. The other option is fix it. The third option is report. The fourth option is any combination of those that you would like. So fix it, write a report, and notify the human might be what you choose to do for your network.
Okay, thanks. Those are all the questions.
Okay, let's move on to more details then. So what are we talking about in products? Really, it's not all that complicated. If you look at the cloud at the top, that's where everything takes place. That's where the artificial intelligence is. Now, by cloud, we mean the AWS network, and we also mean microservices. So if you look at if you look at one of our main competitors, Meraki, They offer cloud services to run their Wi-Fi net or their customers' Wi-Fi networks. What they're using in the cloud actually are virtual machines or VMs. And that's why the cloud was first built, was really to give you access to an unlimited number of VMs. However, because of the way their code is written, it does require a full virtual machine. And virtual machines are a bit clunky in today's day and age. Virtual machines are also just like physical machines. They can be overloaded, they can need to reboot, they can reset, etc. They actually require maintenance as well. We do everything with microservices or containers. So the difference there is actually pretty important. They have a server that runs the Wi-Fi, or if you want to call it controller in Wi-Fi lingo, that's probably a more appropriate term. We break all of these operations that are required down into microservices. So a microservice might be authentication. A microservice could be monitoring. A microservice could be provisioning a new system. A microservice could be looking at an individual switch. When these microservices start to overload, or if there is a problem, dynamically spin up more. They're just containers. The AWS commitment is that new containers can be spun up within 6 seconds. We're really seeing about a half a second in terms of latency. So with all of these microservices, our sales reps and our marketing people like to say we have infinite scalability. The engineer in me has trouble with that word. There seems to be a limit for everything, but we have not come across where that actual limit is. So it gives you scalability, it gives you better performance, it gives you reliability as well. If there is in fact a problem with AWS's network, say in Seattle, the resources are dynamically transferred elsewhere. And by the way, there's a European cloud as well. So if you do have European customers, they have a little more direct access in coming back to the States. So that's the cloud part. That's all of the, that's the man behind the curtain, if you will. This will all be somewhat transparent to your customers. The services that we sell that run on that cloud are the next level down. Wired Wi-Fi assurance, wired assurance, today's topic, Marvis, user engagement, which is very interesting. That's actually an API that allows you to talk to or your customers. So this is a way to change the conversation from switches and access points to how can you run a store better or a hotel better. Anand started by talking about contact tracing. That's something that we can do with user engagement in order to help make your offices a little bit safer for the COVID world. And then asset tracking ties into some of that as well. Hospital customers use this, where they put a simple little BLE tag, say, on heart monitors. And when a doctor is in a room with a patient and decides that he needs a heart monitor, the nurse now can take a look at her screen and say, oh, there's one 3 doors down. Let me go get that. They do that with wheelchairs. This may not be politically correct. They do that with patients too. So they can track patients, especially maybe in the dementia ward, to see where they're wandering around. And they do that just by putting a little bracelet on the patient with a tag on it. With regards to user engagement and offices and contact tracing, you can do that either through a phone or you can do that with a BLE tag. At Juniper, we all use lanyards for our employee IDs. They have a BLE tag on that. And now we can see if too many people are congregating in a conference room, or if perhaps somebody does self-report COVID, we can now see whom they came in contact with over the past up to 30 days. So tying this back to the big picture and wired assurance, the actual hardware that we sell for these two solutions are the Wi-Fi APs and also the wired EX switches. Now, you may notice that these are the currently shipping versions of EX switches. So if your customer does in fact have what we call legacy switches, perhaps EX 2200s, they cannot be managed in the same way that, that the newer ones can with the latest Junos. However, we can in fact treat them as if they were a third-party switch, and in turn get some basic stats from them and basic health checks too. So those are the foundation for what we want to talk about. Kind of skip through this. What we're going to get to is simple provisioning, configuration, and management. So let's look at this from a different perspective. Provisioning day 0. Show you how to start up the switches. deploying the switches, and then of course ongoing operations. Starting with day 0, when you order a switch from your favorite distributor, which is Securematics, of course, you submit a PO. That PO will have the APs that you want to buy on it, the switches that you want to buy on it, and the subscriptions. We'll order all those, enter all of those into the same system, so your customer, or you as a reseller, will get one activation code. That activation code will enable all of the above. With that, you onboard it, starting by entering the activation code. This is where it gets really fun. The switches have a QR code on them. All you have to do is use your phone and scan that QR code into the Mist portal, and your switch has now been activated. Same goes for the APs. Now, any other vendor is going to tell you that you plug in the switch to the network, or you get a console so you could type CLI commands. I think the fact that we're going to just say use your phone, doesn't matter whether it's an Android or an iPhone, scan that QR code and you're good to go. So that's day 0. Actually, this would be a great place to pause. Bailey from Securematics has a test that we're gonna send out your way. One test question, if you want to do the first one. Simplest way to onboard a new switch is? This is just to see if you're paying attention almost.
And Bill, while they're answering that, I did have another question for you.
Cool.
Would Marvis have the ability to allow the EX4300 and the EX4650 to play together in a VC config?
Oh, good question. The answer is VCs are absolutely included in this. And so if 2 switches are compatible in a VC, like the ones you just mentioned, thumbs up.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Bill, just to add to this question, to your answer, actually the EX4300 can only be on one virtual chassis with EX4600. So with 4650, actually 4650 should be alone on a virtual chassis. So Marvis won't be able to do this if the switch is not capable of doing that. But if the switch is capable of doing that, then Marvis would definitely can assist with that.
Very, very good point. Thank you for keeping me honest. I did not somehow hear you say 4650. I just heard the 46. So yes, any legal virtual chassis that you can make with Junos, with those switches, Marvis can have, or the AI engine can absolutely support. Okay, so correct answer was the top one. Good, we got 2/3 of the group with that. All you do to onboard a new switch, scan that QR code and you're good to go. Thanks, guys. So now let's move to day 1. People can see you. I'm getting screens on top of screens here. I'm sorry about that. Day 1, configuration. Now, you can configure a switch individually through the application. Not a problem. It's actually very simple to do. You have a bunch of templates where you just fill in the appropriate information. Most of our customers probably have multiple switches that are very similar. So a simpler way to do this would be to build bulk configuration templates. So these configuration templates can apply to an individual switch, a group of switches, a group of sites, individual sites like perhaps the Los Angeles campus, and they can be applied either on the switch level or, as the next line says, down on the port level, or both. So what we want to do is say, let the computers program computers, or let the networking devices be programmed by the core Marvis operating system. You build the basic template, and then we'll push it out. And by the way, part of that could also be upgrading the switch too. So if the switch was shipped with a previous version of the operating system that you don't want to use on your network, the upgrade can be included in this. So organize your switches and organize your sites based upon your customers' requirements. Everyone will be different, But as you see here, you have sites tied together and sites included in a more aggregate version. So your switches can then inherit all of the configurations, or you can even override the existing configurations too. So if in fact you do have some legacy switches and you want to standardize on things or push out new policies, we can do that whatever way you want. Templates from a global perspective. On the bottom, you see, once again, we can be talking about applying them to individual switches. Oh, or here's something, individual switch models. So if you have different switches for the aggregation side of your network versus the access side, we can identify per model or per label or per site or per group or per universe if you want. Some of the global parameters you can see, something like NTP would certainly be global. Turning on protocols or not, turning on security parameters, authentication, all of that's built into a template. Carrying it down to a port level, still the same ways to apply this, but now you might want to assign ports based upon a range or based upon function. For example, the higher level ports might be the router ports or the server ports or the APs or the printers in your network. And you can build configs that will actually auto detect based upon that as well. So using LLDP as a protocol, we could auto detect that you did in fact plug an AP into that port. So therefore the correct configuration is whatever the template says. So that's how you get through day 1 and day 0 of deploying your customers' networks. This is, I hope, much simpler than even some of the automation things that you've seen in the past, and also much less error prone, and also much quicker. I do have a test question on that, if you will. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, if you would, Bailey.
And while I'm distributing that, I have another question for you.
Cool.
In a power out scenario, can I have Marvis determine what needs to come back up and in what order?
No, that's actually not something we've built into the system, but that is a great idea. Because that's something that we do with our network management systems at very large infrastructures for recovery. I'm gonna take that as something to add to the suggestion box.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, we got rock stars here. Good. Thank you, guys. 100% of the right answer. So visibility. Now that you've brought your switches up, let's talk day 2, maintaining the network. This is kind of what I showed you earlier from the Juniper Mist office. Interesting top screen here. 12 switches, 20 access points, 60 some odd active clients, and also total AP power that's being drawn too. Why is that relevant? Because a lot of switches have AP power budgets. So the assumption when you buy a PoE enabled switch is often that you're not going to be running every port at full PoE. After all, you are going to be plugging into some other switches. You are going to be plugging into potentially printers, maybe some VoIP phones, although they could use PoE as well. So instead of just giving you massive power supplies with a very large power draw on each switch, we tend to give our customers a power budget that they can then allocate across ports. So that's a cool way to track that as well. So what you see here on the next line down, switch AP affinity. So yes, the connections are valid and up and running 100%. PoE compliance. It looks like there might be a place where we're drawing a little too much power. So that's something that Marvis could help you isolate. VLAN compliance, really good. Version compliance, interesting here, pretty crappy. What version compliance is you have told Marvis that you want all the switches in your network to be running a certain rev of Junos. It looks like not too many are there. Marvis can in fact go and upgrade those switches, but it will ask permission to do that. An upgrade does require rebooting the switch, which does require a couple minutes of downtime. So you don't want to just do that midday while everyone's up and running. That's something that apparently this particular customer is taking as a low priority. And switch uptime greater than 99%. Why don't we say 100%? Well, this is just because engineers like myself will say you can never get to infinity, you can never get to 100%. That's a very green stat at this point for this particular network. Got to tell you a funny story on that. Is way back in my career, I worked for Bay Networks, or if you remember, Nortel Networks, bought them. At one of our annual sales meetings, we held it in Vegas, and the MC for that meeting was the comedian Sinbad, and he was very entertaining. And he did his homework before this too, because I really don't know Sinbad's background, but I would guess it's probably not in computer networking. But he had in fact researched a lot of the buzzwords and where Nortel was in the marketplace and who he sold to, and how we disliked Cisco, and he worked that all into his little shtick. So at one point he got kind of brave and opened up to the audience. He says, "What do you guys want me to talk about?" And somebody from the front row said 5 nines. And Sinbad said, "Sorry, you stumped me. What are 5 nines?" And the guy says, "Well, we sell to service providers. They want 99.999% uptime." Sinbad's answer was, "Why the F don't you just call that 100%? And so every time I see 5 nines or 6 nines or whatever the requirement is, that comes back to me. So obviously that's an engineering stat as opposed to a marketing one. Marketing would have said something different. Okay, I'm way off topic on all that. So let me tie this back to wired assurance. So here's another view of the organization. You can look at all of your switches. You can look at what the names are, what the addresses are, what they're assigned to do, and you can drill down on any of those as well. More importantly, this is where we differentiate ourselves from other network management solutions. We care about service level expectations or service level experiences. So we can look at each and every one of the individual clients, whether they're on a switch or whether they're through a switch, then an AP. We can look at their throughput. We can set metrics for what's an appropriate connect time, what's an appropriate response time, what's appropriate throughput. Should you be applying an SLA to that particular user? Should you be giving them better quality of service? What is the health of the connection? And you have simple green or red at the bottom, but you could drill down for more stats on that. Or you could say, "Hey Marvis, why does user 63 have red?" And Marvis will tell you why that decision was made by the management system. Marvis will also tell you what he recommends in terms of corrective action. So now we're showing visibility from the central office to the switch, to the access point, to the actual end user. That's what you see in the blow up at the right. You've imported a whole office and you can now see where end users are. Let's assume they're all Wi-Fi connected. And if they're mobile, if they're using their tablet, walking from office to office, you can see that. And you can also see red, yellow, or green connections too. And you could color code some of those as well for users on their phones, users on their tablets, servers, printers. I don't know why printers would be roaming, but it's possible to track those as well. So this is better visibility than your customers have ever had of their network. Now that you want to know, decided you want to know something more about a particular device, here's a switch. Here are the active ports. You can see some cool little icons with regards to what's connected to those ports via a wireless, be it a wireless AP, be it a phone, be it a server. There are icons for all of those. And then you can get insights beyond that. And you can even tie those into a map of the location too. So if you're looking at a WAN instead of just a simple LAN, you can now see things that are happening in other cities as well. So once again, you're getting a whole lot more visibility than your customers have ever had in the network. And Marvis is learning about all of these too. So we're also baselining things, such as, should printers ever make calls to the outside world? If they do, that's something kind of odd. Here we've asked Marvis, using the natural language, list wired switches. That's got to be the most uninteresting query you could ever make. But in turn, you ended up getting a list of all of the switches that we're looking at. And Marvis actions. So now you have a recommended action look at the bottom part of this picture, please. The recommended action is that a VLAN seems to be missing on one of the organizations or site-wide. What's the corrective action? Well, that would be, of course, to add the VLAN. So now it's just identifying the action. It's not taking the correction without you telling it to do so. So that hasn't been automated for this particular client yet, but it shows which organization, which switches, and which access points are a concern. So that's a great point for the third and final quiz question, please, Bailey. Gives me a chance to take a sip of water too. Please don't say reboot the server.
And Bill, I did have another question come in. I didn't catch if you answered this one, but can Marvis look at my network topology and make recommendations where an HA config may be necessary?
Yes, indirectly, not in so many words. So it can in fact look at the topology and give you a blast radius. If you, if for example, a switch in engineering were to go down, okay, well done. I like the green answer of let's use Marvis. Yeah, you could in fact do the other two that you've commented on as well. But I would go to Marvis first and foremost. So back to answering the question, there is a blast radius feature where if a switch does go down, you will see what it takes down with it. So Marvis does not currently say you should add HA here, but you could infer that based upon that information. And if whoever asked that question wants to add a follow-up too, please do. Okay, good answers, guys. Thank you. So let me go back to the screen and the wrap-up portion. Dollars and cents. We're all in this to help our customers, but we also would like something to sell, and as we do that. So, market insertion opportunities for wired assurance. The very best opportunity and the best story that you can have for your customer would be a greenfield campus network. So if your customer is in fact developing a new site or even doing a whole-scale network refresh, it's very easy to talk about what you can do for them on a systemic network-wide solution basis. So the cool thing here is now you're really showing the full power of Marvis, where you're going to be able to say, why can't Jane get to the HR server? And look at everything end to end. Brownfield is a little more challenging, but there are a lot of benefits to offer as well. So in terms of brownfield, you can talk about this with regards to a refresh, of course, which I kind of see as greenfield almost. You could talk about this in terms of a network expansion. Let's add this capability to the new wing of the hospital and see how it works out. You can use this for remediation. If they're having a lot of problems with their current system, maybe adding some monitoring and some real-time information and some artificial intelligence would in fact lead to quicker problem solving, and also network transformation too. If they're moving things from one part of the network to the next, if they're maybe moving their small switches to the perimeter and adding new core switches, that's again an opportunity to talk about what we can do with all this. A benefit I forgot to mention is when you get a new Juniper EX switch, you automatically get 90 days of JTAC coverage. With wired assurance, that's expanded to a full year right off. So very subtle benefit, fairly small benefit, but something worth mentioning as well. Since everyone here is on the reseller side and we're all in here for the sell part of the reseller word, I'd be remiss if I didn't add the comment that wired assurance tends to upsell deals about 10%-ish. Your mileage may vary. How to quote and price? You really get two options here. Wired assurance by itself, that's the lower portion, or wired assurance with core Juniper support as well. And along those lines, this is a license of 1, 3, or 5 years. And it's also based upon the port count as well for your switches. So if you do have a 48 port switch, that does in fact mean that we're going to be monitoring a lot more user sessions than we would on a 12 port switch. So there's a lot more information available, a lot more storage that takes place in the cloud, and a lot more value to the user as well. So therefore, the price is incremental based upon switch port counts. That, folks, is kind of the end of my story on the AI-driven enterprise. I want to thank everyone for your time this morning, and let me open it up to any more questions.
No questions yet, Bill. I'll give everyone a minute or two to ask any. And if not, we'll wrap it up.
Okay, well, let me wrap up by saying that Juniper and Securematics are both here for you guys to help you understand or explain all the solution to your customers. We're also here to help you put together parts lists, recommendations, configs, topologies, anything we can do to help you make your customers successful. Thank you guys again for your time. Thank you, Securematics, for sponsoring this event. And everybody have a good and safe weekend.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye, guys.